Good morning, students. In the operating system video lecture series, today we will discuss protection. So, let's start. The process in an operating system must be protected from one another activities. Okay. So, for that purpose, various mechanisms can be used to ensure that the files, memory segment, CPU, and other resources can be operated on by only those processes that have gained proper authorization from the operating system. Mean to say, only authorized processes can access the file. So you can say that is the protection, how you can protect your file. Now, protection refers to a mechanism for controlling the access of programs, processes, or users to the resources defined by a computer system. This mechanism must provide a means for specification of the controls to be enforced. Together with some means of enforcement, we distinguish between protection and security. So security we will discuss later on, which is a measure of confidence that the integrity of the system and its data will be preserved. Security assurance is a much broader topic. We will discuss that in later on. Now, we will start from the protection. So, in this, what are the goals of protection? Now, one is operating system, consists of a collection of objects, that is hardware or software. So protection was originally conceived as an adjunct to multi-programming operating system, so that untrustworthy users might safely share a common logical namespace, such as directory or files, or share a common physical namespace, such as memory. Modern protection concepts have evolved to increase the reliability of any complex system that makes use of a shared resources. Okay, so you can say that each object has a unique name and can be accessed through a well-defined set of operations. You can say protection can improve reliability by detecting latent errors at the interfaces between components of system. Early detection of interface errors can often prevent, contamination of a healthy subsystem by a malfunctioning subsystem. So the role of protection in a computer system is to provide a mechanism for the enforcement of the policies governing resource use. These policies can be established in a variety of ways. Some are fixed in the design of the system, others are formulated by the management of a system. Still, others are defined by the individual users to protect their own files and programs. So, a protection system must have the flexibility to enforce a variety of policies that can be declared to it. Okay. So, protection problem, as we have discussed, to ensure that each object is accessed correctly and only by those processes that are allowed to do so. Okay. So policy is distinct from mechanism. Mechanism means to say there is one mechanism to determine how something will be done, but policies decide what will be done. Policies means what will be done. So you can say principles of the least privilege programs, users and systems should be given just enough privileges to perform their task. Into say privileges or authorities will be given to the programs, users, and systems should be given just enough privileges to perform their task. Separate policy from mechanism. As I have discussed, policy is distinct from mechanism. Mechanism determine how something will be done, but policies decide what will be done. The separation of policy and mechanism is important for flexibility. Policies are likely to change from place to place and time to time. In the worst case, every change in policy would require a change in the underlying mechanism. General mechanisms are more desirable because a policy change would require the modification of only some system parameters or tables. So mechanisms are stuff built into the operating system to make protection work, and policies are data that says who can do what to whom. Okay, so these are guiding principle of protection. One is the principle of least privilege, what the privileges have been given to the different the user system and the programs, and the separate policy from mechanism. Now we will discuss in the access right, that is the domain structure. So to facilitate this scheme, a process operates within a protection domain, okay, which separates the resources that the process may access. Each domain defines a set of objects and the types of the operation that may be involved on each object. Okay. As you have seen in this, access right equals to object name and right set. Mean to say this particular name of the object and what is the right it has. Where the right set is the subset of all valid operations that can be performed on that particular object. So you can say this object name and the right set. For example, if the domain D has the access right, file F read write. So then a process executing in domain D can both read and write file. Okay, just as you can see in the D1, it is O3 read and write. O1 is also read and write. So it can read and write both the file. O2 is only execute. Now this again in the domain D2 and D3 in the D2. So domains do not need to be disjoint. They may share, right? In the second figure, you can see the domain can be share access rights. For example, in this figure, we have, this three domains, D1, D2, and D3. The access right O4 print is shared by both D2 and D3, implying that a process executing in either of these two domains, either in D2 or in D3 domains, can print object O4. Okay, so now it is clear. So this is domain set, and on the other hand, only processes in domain D3 may execute object O1. Okay, so O2 can write, and this thing can be done. So the association between a process and a domain may be either static if the set of resource available to a process is fixed throughout the letter's lifetime, or dynamic as might be expected. Establishing dynamic protection domains is more complicated than establishing static protection domains. Now, before going to the further to the conceptual representation of the access matrix, we can say that if the association is dynamic, a mechanism is available to allow a process to switch from domain to another domain. You can switch from domain to domain, and now we will discuss this conceptual representation, that is the access matrix. We will discuss. In our model of protection can be viewed abstractly as a matrix called an access matrix. Okay, access matrix. So the rows represents domains. The matrix rows will represent the domains, and the matrix columns will represent the objects. So row will represent domains, and column will represent the objects. And now the access ij. Access ij defines a set of operations that process executing in domain I can invoke an object oj. So to this illustrate this concept, we consider an access matrix. Now see this matrix. In this access matrix, we are having three files: F1, F2, F3, and one laser printer. As you know, it is written printer. You can say laser printer. So when a process executes in domain D1, this is the domain D1, D2, D3, D4, and now this F1, F2, F3, and printer object are there. So when a process executes in domain D1, it can read files F1 and F3. Fine. A process executing in domain D4 can, what it can do? It can read and write file F1 or F3. Fine. A process executing in domain D4 has the same privilege as it does in domain D1. But in addition, it can also write. Okay, in the D1 that they are having read, but it is also read and write. Okay, it can also write on file, F1 and F3 in the this F1 and F3. Okay, fine. Now it is okay. Now note that the printer can be accessed only by the process executing in domain D2. So only those you can say that the printer can be accessed only by those process which is executing in domain D2. Others cannot, you can say, cannot access the printer. So the access matrix scheme provides us with the mechanism for specifying a variety of policies. The mechanism consists of implementing the access matrix and ensuring that the semantic properties we have outlined indeed hold. We must ensure that a process executing in domain DI can access only those objects specified in a row I, and then only as allowed by the access matrix entries. Okay. So now this is the access control list associated with each object. Rows are capabilities associated with each user group or domain. Okay. So now this is the practicalities. If you will see in that practicalities at runtime, what does the operating system know about the user? What does the OS know about the resources? What is the cost of the checking and enforcing access to the data, cost of searching from a match? Impractical to implement full access matrix. Okay, it's very difficult to implement full access matrix. Okay, but size, access control, disjoint from both object and domain. So these things could be there. There could be more access matrix domains you can make by yourself, where the domain and object will be there, and you can execute the changing the permissions of the file, like read and write. You may have execute, read, write, print, all these things you can have. Now the thing, this ACL access control list versus capabilities. So access control list focus on resources. It is good if resource greatly outnumber users. Can be implemented with minimal caching. Can be attached to object, that is file metadata. Good when the user who creates a resource has authority over it. Capability system focus on users. Good if users greatly outnumber resources. A lot of information, caching is needed. Good when a system manage has control over all resources. Okay, and access control list for files and other pro-filtering resources, capabilities for major system functions. The common operating system offer both Linux emphasis and ACL model provide good control over files and resources that are file-like. Windows 2000 XP emphasizes capabilities, provide good control over access to system functions, that is creating a user, new user, or doing a system backup. Access control list for implementation of access matrix. We can implement of access matrix with the help of global table, consisting of a set of ordered triples, domain name, object, and right set. Access list for object. Okay, this can be implemented as an access list for one object. Okay, and capability list for domain. So this capability list for a domain is a list of objects together with the operation allowed on those objects. Fine, and a lock key mechanism. So a lock key mechanism is a compromise between access level and capability list. Each object has a list of unique bit pattern called locks. Similarly, each domain has a list of unique bit pattern called keys. So a process executing in a domain can access an object only if that domain has a key that matches one of the locks of the object. There are also revocation of access rights. In a dynamic protection system, we may sometimes need to revoke access rights to objects shared by different users. So various questions about revocation may arise. Revocation should be, does revocation occur immediately or it is delayed? Whether it is selective or in general, or when access rights to an object is involved, does it affect all the users who have an access right to that object, or can we specify a selective group of users? Can partial versus total? So can a subset of the rights associated with an object be revoked, or must be revoked from all access rights for this object, whether it is temporary or permanent? So with an access list scheme, revocation is easy. So the access list is search for the access rights to be revoked. Uh, Capabilities, however, present a much more difficult revocation problem. Since the capabilities are distributed throughout the system, so we must find them before we can revoke them. So the schemes that implement revocation for capabilities include reacquisition, back pointers, indirection, keys, and so on. Okay, and their protection in Java, we are having classes. Okay, and all these things will be there. So one thing you can say, the language-based protection provides finer grained attribution of requests and privileges than is possible from the operating system. So I mean to say, if you are providing the language, so language-based protection is much, can say better. For example, a single Java JVM can run several threads, each in a different protection class. It enforces the resource request through sophisticated stack inspection and via the type of safety of the language. So here I will stop. So thank you. And these are some of the references. In the next topic, we will discuss consistency and semantic security. Thank you. Thank you, students, for listening this.